John Harbaugh finally revealed the preseason decision that we were all waiting for. And I think a lot of people anticipated. We talk about that, Ravens injury updates, training camp notes, and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Free and available for you on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, as an audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. 5 days per week here, plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Monday through Friday is our regularly scheduled show, but we also go live after every single Ravens game, after every single piece of Ravens big news. We now have Locked On Ravens watch along, so you can tune in and watch the games live with me and react to them every single game. And we also have the Locked On Ravens Squad show Mondays and Thursdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Appreciate all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have a jam-packed show to dive into today. In the final part of the show, the Ravens hit the practice field on Monday, and we will be diving into what happened on that practice field. Second part of the show, we're going to dive into some injury updates. John Harbaugh gave a pretty long laundry list of them, so we'll dive into that. But in the first part of the show, John Harbaugh finally revealed and admitted the big preseason decision that everybody is anticipating or was anticipating. It is now in the books. John Harbaugh says that the Ravens will just be playing their young guys in the final game of the preseason against the Commanders, officially signaling that players like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Roquan Smith, the vets, they're not going to play at all. That's the Ravens' decision. And the official, and John Harbaugh opened up his press conference on Monday just with it. He dove straight into it. He said, we'll go down to Washington on a Saturday and play. It'll be mostly the young guys playing in that game. Then we'll be on to Buffalo. And he was asked a couple of follow-up questions about it. And first of all, talking a little bit about splitting the focus where the young guys are competing, but then the vets are now starting to think about the Bills because clearly, they're not going to, it's preseason for the vets. So the fact they're not playing also kind of shifts that focus over. And he said, yeah, it'll be a little bit of both of those things. So they're going to go down and play. The guys are fighting for the jobs and opportunities to make the roster. And he even talked about guys who we know are going to make the team. That's what Harbaugh talked about. They'll be playing in that game too, to kind of get themselves ready and to gain experience. But this is kind of where things start to turn to the regular season, which to me is just really exciting in general. But it becomes the prep work. And I think as you kind of move closer into the end of August, or you get there, that's when the real work does begin. Now, he also talked a little bit about the fact that there would be no joint practice with the Commanders on Thursday. Obviously, those two teams were scheduled to have a practice together, but it was canceled due to essentially logistical reasons, player safety concerns, timing of certain things. And he talked a little bit about what went into that. And he said that it really only changes the schedule in the fact that there won't be a joint practice. They're not going to schedule around that. But the fact that the Commanders played yesterday, they played on Monday night, and they really weren't going to be able to be in a place to have the practice that both teams needed because they're on a short week. So it just didn't make sense. Harbaugh said they tried and it wasn't worth going down there for. But the reason I bring it up and I'm talking about that practice, and it's something that, we talked about when the practice was canceled initially, was the fact that, well, the joint practices are the opportunities when you do not play your veterans in the preseason to get work in against another team in a controlled environment. The Ravens do not have that now. They obviously had the one against the Colts, and I think that both teams were very happy and very pleased with how that went. But the Ravens, they're not the Bengals. They didn't play their starters. The Chiefs played their starters. Other teams played their starters. That's not how they operate. And honestly, there's a whole debate about whether the Ravens should or shouldn't. I honestly see both sides of the argument. I would have loved have seen the starters for a drive or two, but after what happened to J.K. Dobbins in 21, when they tried to sneak some work in that final preseason game, or, just in general, when you're talking about the potential injury risks is it worth, shaking off a little rust if a guy goes down? That's what you have to weigh. But I think not having the joint practice makes it a little more iffy for me. Now, at least they had the one. At least they had the one, and that's good. But joint practices, and we talked about this with Kadri Ismail on the squad show, and Q and I have talked about it, just the two of us. But it used to be when he was playing, these joint practices used to be like multiple days long, almost weeks long, like a week. And then that kind of went down to just a couple of days, 2 days or so. And now it's only one day where those joint practices happen. The controlled environments that those practices give you are really, really important when your vets don't play. And we know the Ravens can't afford to start the season 0-2. Now, they started 0-2 last season, and they were able to bounce back and recover from it. But they really shouldn't have started 0-2 in the first place. It was the fact that there was a little bit of rust they had to shake off. And they lost the game to the Raiders in pretty embarrassing fashion. They almost pulled it off against the Chiefs in week 1. Obviously, there was a lot of emotion going into that game for the Ravens. There's going to be a lot of emotion this time around going into Buffalo and playing that game. Back-to-back years going into the place where their season ended, or I guess Kansas City came to Baltimore, but, playing the team where their season ended against. That's what I mean by that. So they're going to be those emotions. Ravens, obviously, they understand it's not necessarily what's at stake, but they understand the impact that game could have in starting it off, setting a tone. Roquan Smith has talked about that. Starting 0-2 last year, you're like, dang, it's a tough way to start because you have Dallas, then they had Buffalo. Like, it was a tough stretch to open their season. This year, it's even a tougher stretch to open their season. 5 of 6 games against division winners to open up their year. The only game that they will not be playing against the division winner is week 2 against Cleveland, which, by the way, the Browns ended up naming their starting quarterback Mr. Joe Flacco. So if everything holds up and Joe doesn't get benched after week 1 or gets injured, he will be starting against the Ravens in week 2 at M&T Bank Stadium for the first time since he was traded to Denver back in that 2019 offseason. So, Joe talked a little bit about that on the Ryan Ripken show, said it would be fun and a cool experience for him. Different, obviously, but that's that only game that you have that's not against a divisional opponent. So it's hard to weigh, truly, because we see nightmare scenarios all the time in the preseason, in training camp, where guys go down. And eventually you have to put the work in, and the bubble wrap is coming off in week 1 regardless. Like, guys are playing. So I understand. Plus, I think that the Ravens want to truly get a good look at their depth here in the final preseason game. I think that it's a win-win for them in their eyes, and I see where they're coming from for sure about the fact that a lot of these guys could use the reps. Players that, and Harbaugh talked about it, not just are fighting to make the roster, but are also fighting for roles. So we've talked about guys like Trenton Simpson, TJ Tampa, Ben Cleveland, Rasheen Ali, like guys who, especially with Harbaugh's comments on Ali, are probably pretty cemented on the roster, right? Not really expecting any of those guys to get cut or anything, but guys that still could have a specific role and an increased role potentially if they're able to perform. So those are the types of things that you like to see and you want to see, and you want to get as much tape on those young guys as you can. At the end of the day, we know that Lamar Jackson, Jaire Alexander, who we'll get to in the second part of the show a little bit, Derrick Henry, Kyle Hamilton, those guys, the stars, they don't need the preseason. They don't need it. The Ravens can obviously survive, and they have, without those guys playing. They have for years. Lamar hasn't played in a preseason game, and I can't even, it's 3 or 4 years now, I think. I think it was since that 2021 game, maybe 2022. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head right now, but it's been a while since Lamar's played in a preseason game. And he's been just fine. He's won an MVP since then, almost won 2. So I'm not worried about that aspect of it. But it's about the just the rust of playing that high level competitive game, which, look, we know these guys can play. I'm not saying, the Ravens aren't playing their guys in the preseason, they're going to start 0-2 again. I'm not putting that on them. But if they do start 0-2 again, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, I think we might see the Ravens play their guys in the preseason next year. So, look, it was a decision I don't think really shocked anybody. John Harbaugh talked about after the first preseason game, or I think right before it, he said that, the guys aren't going to play in this game, but we'll take it game by game and see. Well, I think everybody kind of anticipated. I think that decision is probably already made up. And the Ravens, they I guess, prove everybody right. The Ravens will not be playing their guys at all this preseason, and we will see if it has any impact on the season this year. But it's kind of hard to measure, honestly. Like, you can't really measure it. It's hard. I guess if a guy looks really, really bad, he can. But how do you measure if a guy is rusty or if he's just having a bad game in the first week of the season? Like, that to me, it can get a little bit dicey, but the decision is made. That is it. But it's not it for us on Locked On Ravens. Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about Ravens and their injury update. John Harbaugh gave a long laundry list of updates on a lot of key players. So stay tuned, plenty to get to on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. And for me, I am going to crown my champion in August. And for me, you look at the Ravens right now, you look over on FanDuel, their Super Bowl odds are plus 700. That's tied with both the Bills and the Eagles. I like those odds for the Ravens. I think that those top three, and Kansas City obviously comes at number 4 plus 800. That to me, I think those are the top 4 teams in the NFL right now. Baltimore has one of the best rosters they have ever had. So I like the Ravens this season. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Back on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you on this Tuesday edition of the show. Appreciate everybody for being here again. Be sure to tell a friend, tell a family member. We have them covered with Ravens content, just like we have you covered here. We've built up so many amazing communities, video form, audio form, social media, subtext, everything. We have so many amazing people in this community, and I just can't thank everybody enough for their support. Hit 6 years of hosting this show just last week, actually, just a week ago, exactly. So that's exciting. We're building up towards 7. Before you know it, we'll be back, hopefully, with a Super Bowl champion for the Ravens are Super Bowl champions. They're in my 7th year of that anniversary there. So lots of exciting things. And of course, we're leading up to the season. The Ravens, John Harbaugh provided plenty of injury updates on his players on Monday. More updates than I expected to get here, but there were a lot of them. The one that I think caught the most attention was Jaire Alexander. You know, he said that Jaire Alexander really hasn't been seen in a while, and John Harbaugh has asked if everything is okay with him and some of the other guys in the DB room. So Harbaugh said the DB room in particular, they're dealing with nothing serious in terms of season issues or even for the opener. Now, in terms of Jaire, he said that he had something just to kind of take care of that knee, and he said, quote, then you do some things to kind of help it from a health standpoint. It's something he's been dealing with for a few years now, so it's not anything we didn't expect. Probably that might have been something to help, but you have to take a couple days after you do that before you can practice. And so I think for Jaire, it's coming up on 10 or 11 days. I think August 9th was when he last practiced. So, it's been a little more than just a few days for Jaire. He is a guy that obviously has had that injury and injury issues, and Harbaugh talked about that this is something he's been dealing with. So actually on the Locked On Ravens squad show, it's myself, Sam Njoku, and former Ravens receiver Qadri Ismail Q. He does missile training, missiletraining.com, very in the know about human movement, sports performance. And so we talked about the injuries, and I asked Q about the issues with Jaire right now and kind of what's going on. So, and how you kind of rehab and heal something like that. So I want to play that clip from Q, and then we'll dive back into the Ravens injury updates here. Q, was there anything with his injury history and kind of the past with the knee stuff? And I think, what was it, a PCL for him, I believe?
I'm about to say, so the PCL, the way they rehabbed it, the Packers, I think that was what his father's frustration was, is that they were trying to rush it. And the PCL is just like, you got to let that thing, work its thing, work its magic. But if here I am, and I know, it rolls off my tongue, and I'm not trying to, I just care. Just let me just say it that way. But there are different ligaments and tendons, and there are certain ways you can go about the healing process to make sure that it is not a weakness, but rather a strength. That whole knee complex, I've had some really good results with some protocols through FSM. So, yeah, hopefully the Ravens are on top of it, and it won't be something that is a lingering issue.
Yeah, I think for the Ravens, there's no benefit to rushing Jaire back, especially not now. I mean, take his time. I'm totally okay with him doing that. As long as he's ready for week 1, that's cool with me. But again, he might, I don't know. It feels like Harbaugh's not concerned. We know that sometimes John Harbaugh and his injury updates can be vague, or, he's not telling us something. Like sometimes John Harbaugh injury updates can be an adventure. That's how I'll put it. That they sometimes are an adventure. So people don't really understand what's going on. There is a little mystery in Harbaugh's answers. I hope he comes back to practice soon and is all good. Now, it's something that we have had to anticipate, though, and I kind of want to bring it up again, where if Jaire does have to miss time, which I think you do kind of have to anticipate based off of his injury history, you are still okay in that room. Jaire is a luxury at this point for the Ravens in the secondary. He's a great luxury to have. I want him to play all 17 games for the Ravens. I want him to start. I want him to ball out, earn a big contract this upcoming offseason. But the injury history is there. So you still have Marlon Humphrey, still have Nate Wiggins. Obviously, Chidobe Awuzie was originally signed to probably be that third corner, maybe split some time with TJ Tampa, who's also in that room. Ruben Lowry has emerged as a very strong candidate to make the roster, and he can also play there for you. So the Ravens have no shortage of depth in that cornerback room. Now, of course, it helps when you have an all-pro like Jaire, you can just throw at a receiver. Then you get Marlon and Nate, and then the safeties with Kyle Hamilton and Malaki Starks. But if Jaire is to miss the time here, we do know that the Ravens, at least if it's just Jaire, instead of another star, like they're okay there. They're fine there. But obviously Jaire adds another element to this defense, which would make it truly, truly, truly elite. So something to keep an eye on for sure, right? Definitely not in the woods with that. Hopefully he's back at practice as soon as possible, hopefully even today. But we'll see how that all unfolds. Harbaugh also talked about DeAndre Hopkins. He kind of said it's the same thing with D-Hop. He's an older guy working, and they're on his knee a little bit, so it's just things like that. So Harbaugh didn't seem concerned about DeAndre Hopkins either, so that's good news. Really doesn't feel like there's anything long-term with those guys, which, again, is really good. Harbaugh also gave an update on Emory Jones. Obviously, the third-round rookie has not participated at all. He had labrum surgery, shoulder stuff, and there was some hope by Harbaugh that he could be able to return by the middle of training camp. Obviously, we are nearing the end of training camp, and Jones still not on the field. And Harbaugh said on Emory Jones, quote, "Yes, it's disappointing. He's not going to make it to the start of the regular season. I would say the surgeon, the best I can tell you is he wants to be sure that it's fully right, and that's the way it should be. We respect that. And so it's going to take a little longer, so we won't be counting on him early on in the season." It is definitely disappointing. I was expecting Emory Jones, if he was healthy, to come in there and, give the Ravens an option at swing tackle, possibly even compete with Daniel Faalele for that starting right guard job. Obviously, it didn't work out that way. And, I'm not really sure if we'll see Emory Jones at all this season. I'm not sure if they're just going to put him on season-ending IR, if they're going to try to sneak him on the roster. Like, I don't know. I don't know. So it is disappointing. There were a couple of other tackles that were also on the board. And again, like, Emory Jones is a talented player. He was on my board as a guy that I'd be completely okay with the Ravens taking as a developmental young player. So, again, it's not like Emory Jones is going to make or break the Ravens season, but as the depth that he is, I think it's important to have offensive line depth. The Ravens are in a bit of a precarious spot with that anyway this season, with Patrick McCary no longer on the team, Josh Jones no longer on the team. Joe Noteboom didn't really look great in that preseason game against the Cowboys. So you got to hope your five stay healthy and play well, right? Healthy and good play. That's what you need from that group. Now, with Issa Isaac, we got an update on Issa Isaac. Obviously, he dislocated his elbow during the Ravens Week 2 preseason win against the Cowboys. And the update from John Harbaugh was that there was ligament damage that was found in there with Isaac's dislocated elbow. So Harbaugh kind of elaborated a little bit. He said if it had been dislocated elbow, just clean altogether, it would have been about 3 weeks. But since it's not, he's going to have to undergo surgery. And so Harbaugh clarified it's not a season ender. He said maybe midway through the season sometime he'll have a chance to come back. So another decision there for the Ravens to make. And it's really tough because Isaac has had a really good training camp. We've heard Q talking about him a lot. He's been out there at Owings Mills. Obviously, in the first preseason game against the Colts, he looked really good as well. Just felt like he filled into his frame and the game slowed down for him going into his second season. But now, again, I'm not sure if we're going to see Isaac at all. Could he be placed on IR and his season is over? I mean, do they want to designate him to return? I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Now, Jalen Davis didn't play a ton against the Cowboys. Harbaugh clarified that Jalen Davis has been sick. So he apparently hopefully Harbaugh says he can start feeling better soon. It's nothing huge, but I was wondering why we didn't see as much of Jalen Davis. So apparently that was a part of the reason. So happy we got the clarification on that. And then the media asked for an update on Isaiah Likely, whether he'll be an option for week 1 or not, and just updates on his rehab. And, Harbaugh didn't really give an answer. He's admitted that he's probably not going to share that one as easily as some of the other ones because that's for week 1. And the Ravens do believe in any competitive advantage they can get. John Harbaugh clearly is in that same boat as well. And he said that he might want to keep him guessing a little bit on that one for Isaiah Likely. He said it was always going to be in that range first few weeks of the season, so it might be a little harder to pin down. And, my thing here is I don't think he'll be available for the start of the season. I think week 3 is my timeline for him. Now, they could put him on IR and have him come back after week 4. It's possible, and they get him back for week 5. You have the mandatory 4 weeks on there, and then you can bring him back. It's possible. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if they decide to do IR and then he comes back after week 4, that could be possible. But, yeah, I'm not sure. And Mr. Harbaugh was asked, he said that, we may find out when the guys release the roster if he's on injured reserve. And then Harbaugh said, you might. And, of course, I think we probably would. They have to make the move. So Harbaugh's not going to budge on that one, it feels like. So I think maybe it could be an IR 4-week absence for Likely. He could come back if they don't put him on IR, maybe week 2, week 3. I wouldn't want to rush it with that, though, if I am the Ravens. So another one, positive, Keaton Mitchell back at practice for the Ravens on Monday. So he back on the field. Obviously, there was some concern. Harbaugh gave an update on Mitchell after the game on Saturday and said that, he could play against the Commanders. He'll be fine for week 1. So Keaton Mitchell back on the football field. Really glad that he is out there. Coming up, though, in the final part of the show, we'll get into some training camp news that happened on Monday, who stood out, and a lot more. So stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible, and Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Now, Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for exciting upcoming MLB games. So the Orioles, as they round out their season, you want to see a game at Camden Yards, you can find seats for that over on Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We are back here on Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still rocking out with you here on this Taco Tuesday. Ravens play on Saturday, 12 p.m. game. It's an early game. I thought the game was at 7 p.m. again. No, we got an early game on Saturday for the Commanders. Ravens wrapping up their preseason. Of course, we'll be live here on Locked On Ravens then, doing a watch-along, Ravens watch-along here, as we've done the past 2 weeks for the preseason. It's a new thing we're doing on the show here. And the first 2 have been rising successes. I've been really pleased with them. It's fun to do it. Still kind of learning the play-by-play and getting the posts out on social media and analyzing the game, the whole 9 yards. But it's been fun. We have a ton of different communities, like I said in the second part of the show. Starting to build up a nice little watch-along community over here as well. So be sure you check into that. And then obviously after the watch along, go straight into instant reaction. Straight after instant reaction, go straight into the squad show. We got all the game day Ravens coverage you need. We got like 7 hours or 4 hours, 5 hours of Ravens coverage for you. It's a lot of hours. So be sure to check out all that. Let's get into some training camp news and updates from Monday, though. The Ravens again took the field, and some of the big important things that for the Ravens ended up happening. Big one was Beau Brade. And these updates coming from Justin Robertson over at BaltimoreRavens.com. Now, Beau Brade's in an interesting spot. John Harbaugh, he is kind of on the roster bubble, it feels like. Ruben Lowry played ahead of him. John Harbaugh had some comments on Braid. Well, on Monday, he was all over the place, apparently. He intercepted Cooper Rush on a pass intended for Malik Cunningham. He also jumped the route and snagged the ball with Cunningham riding his shoulder, which was nice. So he almost had a second interception when he came crashing down on a short pass to Keith Kirkwood. And then he also had a pass breakup on a short crosser to Malik Cunningham on the red zone. Another guy who had a strong practice, apparently Broderick Washington, who showed his pursuit by chasing down Zay Flowers at the sideline. And he also had a would-be sack on Devin Leary after quickly beating his man. The Ravens defensive line, not just Broderick Washington. Matabike does this really well. Now, Matabike, Aeneas Peebles showed this in the Cowboys game. These guys win fast. Travis Jones did the same thing. They win so fast. Like when they win hard. They get to the quarterback quickly. Like it is all there for them. And I love it. I love that because it shows the domination. And shout out to Broderick because I think that for him having a big year is really, really important. Lamar had a nice deep ball to Zay Flowers in 11-on-11 drills. Cooper Rush had a nice perfect pass to Jamal Banks for a touchdown down the sideline. Good for Jamal for getting a touchdown after his one got called back for OPI, which I thought was honestly kind of a soft call, but I guess it's the preseason, so it's okay. Although for Jamal, it's important, so I feel for him. Malaki Starks had a nice pass breakup on Devin Leary. That was intended for Zaire Mitchell-Patton on there. Trenton Simpson, he had a play that came in handy on a pass completed to Charlie Kohler. He chased him down and wound up with the ball in his hands. He ripped it away. So nice job forcing a turnover there for Trenton. And again, Trenton is a guy that I talked about. Like he had a couple of nice plays in that Cowboys game, but he didn't pop nearly as much as I think Teddy Buchanan did. And so the Ravens generally favor vets over rookies. First rounders can be a little bit different when there's an immediate need, but the Ravens usually favor vets. And so Trenton Simpson, at least early in the season, right? And so Trenton Simpson would be that favorite there. It might be more of a split, or maybe the Ravens just don't play a ton of base this season. They go more dime. Like, I don't know what they do, but it feels like to me, at least Teddy Buchanan has overtaken Trenton Simpson for that number 2 linebacker spot next to Roquan Smith. Tavius Robinson swatted down a Lamar Jackson pass near the line of scrimmage with Lamar backed up in his end zone. He also got into the backfield untouched on a blitz for a quarterback pressure on Lamar Jackson. The thing that I want people, and if you're listening, watching or the show today, what I want everybody to look at for the Ravens is how many balls they bat down at the line. They have so many guys that are good at that, whether it be Matabike, Brent Urban does it really well, Robinson does it well. Like the Ravens know how to bat balls down at the line effectively, and it stops plays. It stops drives. I mean, a lot of these plays, not all of them, but a decent amount of them, especially if they're short crossers or things over the middle, like latent plays developing, those guys sometimes are open. Like, the longer a play develops, the more likely it is the offensive player wins that battle. It's just impossible to cover for, 9, 10, 11 seconds. So the fact that they're able to bat those balls down, prevent plays, even big plays, really, really important. Ruben Lowry nearly had an interception on a high pass from Cooper Rush. Ruben Lowry and being around the football. I mean, it's like clockwork. Lowry's been amazing. He's been incredible. Clearly the Ravens' best undrafted free agent. They've had a lot. I put out a short this morning late last night about the fact that the Ravens have really hit the jackpot with their defensive rookies here. Malaki Starks, Mike Green, Aeneas Peebles, Teddy Buchanan, Jay Higgins, Lowry, Keon Martin. Like I could go on and on and on. These guys, Chandler Martin, everybody seems like they really did a good job identifying defensive talent in this draft class. Kirkwood had a couple of really tough catches in this game. And then Marquise Robinson, another undrafted rookie cornerback, he was sticky in coverage and had a nice pass breakup. So these updates are really good, especially for the guys who are trying to make the roster, bigger roles for themselves, guys who will have bigger roles like Tavius Robinson this season, who has earned rave reviews from the coaching staff, from his teammates. Mike Green obviously identified him as the vet, is the guy that he looks up to in that room. I know everybody's answer, it's Kyle Van Noy. No, Mike Green said it was Tavius Robinson. So all across the board here as the Ravens kind of wrap up training camp this week, and, at least for the media that's there, and we'll have Q on later in the week, who obviously we talked to during the squad show yesterday, but he'll give us his updates and things that he's seen over the course of the early portion of the week in a couple days. assuming he comes on usually every week. You know, Q's a regular. He's great at what he does. A lot of great insight. So I'm excited. The game on Saturday, and then you keep checking off those boxes as you get closer and closer to the regular season. So I think that with where the Ravens are right now, you got to feel good. And just to round out, we'll go full circle here to round out the show. The Bengals, I don't know what the heck the Bengals are doing. Their defense is, if you watch that game, Bengals and Commanders, Bengals defense is absolutely horrible. Lamar watching that defense was probably, he was probably rubbing his hands together, licking his chops. Man, I'm about to put up 50 on his defense twice. They're really, really, really bad. And then they had Joe Burrow out there with backups, and he's running around trying to be like Lamar, getting hit. Like the Bengals, it's clearly pressure to start the season quickly because Zach Taylor's like 1-9 in the first 2 weeks of the season over his 5 years there or something. I can't remember if that's exactly the timeline, but it's really bad. That's kind of why the Ravens probably don't want to play their starters, is like avoiding situations like that where something can go wrong. So much could go wrong for the Bengals in that situation. Obviously, you never want injuries. I'm glad it all turned out okay for them. But even just putting your quarterback in harm's way like that, the offensive line, it's a mess over there in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow is so talented. So is Jamar Chase. So is T. Higgins. But, man, the rest of that roster, Trey Hendrickson, that whole trade situation, that team needs a lot of work. So you got 3 superstars, and then Trey Hendrickson, is he going to be on the team or not? I don't know. But, that's certainly interesting. So that might have played into the factor for the Ravens, because you don't want to put your guys in harm's way. The Ravens also signed veteran cornerback Thomas Graham, 6th-round pick of the Bears in 2021 out of Oregon, 19 career tackles, has kind of bounced around a little bit. So they worked out Kyle Fuller, but end up going with Thomas Graham instead. So busy day for the Ravens on Monday. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in today on Tuesday. We will, of course, be back here on Wednesday. It's how it goes every single weekday. We got you covered here on Locked On Ravens, plus all of our bonus content, weekends, game days, the whole 9 yards. Be sure on the way out, hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along in audio form, and I will see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.